Hello again and welcome back to our course on Excel 2013 Advanced. In this section we're going to look at what for many people can be the most troublesome area of using Excel, and that's dates and times. Now once you understand how dates and times work in Excel, I really don't think they're that complicated, and I don't think it's that difficult to understand them. The trouble is that if you don't have a fundamental understanding of how dates and times are stored, then the functions that are available and the things that you can do with dates and times will continue to be a bit of a mystery. So the first thing I'm going to do in this section is to explain to you how dates and times are stored. And then some of the functions that you're going to need to understand and some of the things you're going to be able to do with dates and times, I hope, will make a lot more sense. So I appreciate that you may be aware of this, but I'm going to run through it anyway because it's absolutely essential that you understand how dates and times are stored. What I'm going to do is just put into this cell here, B2, a date. And of course, one of the clever things about Excel is that it can deal with dates expressed in many different formats depending on your locale. Even a straightforward date like that may be October the 9th 2010, or it may be the 10th of September 2010, depending on whether the first number in that sequence is treated as a day or whether it's treated as a month. In this particular case it doesn't really matter. But when you've entered something like that into a cell, and if Excel isn't told anything otherwise, it looks at the content of that and decides that it is a date. And in fact, if you right click on that, go into Format Cells, you'll see that it is in fact interpreted as a date. Now note what happens if I change that cell from being a date to being a number. Click on OK and look at what happens in B2. B2 becomes 40460.00, which may seem like a pretty strange number to you. But there is a reason that the number is that, and that is that the way that Excel stores dates is as the number of days since January the 1st, 1900. So it actually stores a date as a count of a number of days. And the significance of the 0.00 after it is that it stores time as a fraction of a day. So let's see what a time looks like. I'm going to click in this cell here and I'm going to put in a date and a time, 11:47 AM. Now Excel will realize that that is a date and time, and if I go into Format Cells again, it doesn't actually classify it as date, it treats it as a custom date, but it realizes that it is a date because it's picked out a date format. But let me now change that to number and click on OK, and what you can see is that I now have a date with a fractional part, 0.49 as the time. Now 11:47 AM is not actually 0.49. Let me go back into Format Cells again. When I changed it to number, I left the number of decimal places at 2. Let's go for say 7 decimal places. Click on OK. And up to 7 decimal places, that's what 11:47 AM is. So of course the fractional part, depending on the time that you specify, and based on the fact, for instance, that we have 24 hours in the day and 60 minutes in an hour and so on, that fractional part could actually require quite a few decimal places to express it accurately. Now let's look at a different situation. Let's suppose that I've written a short sentence like this one in cell B6. The date and time now are 10/9/2010, 11:47 AM. Excel does not recognize what is in this text string as a date. It just recognizes that the whole thing is a text string. So it will store the individual characters of the date, 1, 0, / 9 / etc., and the individual characters of the time, 1, 1, colon, in exactly the same way as it stores the rest of this text string. So the whole text string is just a sequence of characters, T, H, E, space, D, and so on. Now, one of the key things to be able to do in Excel is to understand which of these types of storage is in force at any time, and to be able to convert between text dates and times, what I'm going to refer to as real dates and times, the way they're actually stored, as in the two examples up here. Now, there is also another little complication, if you like, or another little aspect to be aware of, and that is, let me just go back here, and I'm going to right click here on Format Cells. I'm going to say that this particular cell is a text cell, and I'm going to type in there 10/9/2010 11:47 AM, just the same as I did before, but I've already said that that cell contains text. I'm going to enter it, and what Excel does is nothing. It doesn't recognize it as a date and time at all, because I've already told it that I'm putting text in that cell. It just treats it as text. So now let's take a look at some of the most important date and time functions that you're likely to need, and we'll begin with today and now. So neither of these functions need arguments. Let's start with today. Straightforward enough. That gives the date today, and if I put in now, that gives me the date and time. Now, you should be familiar with the formatting of dates and times, so I'm not going to go over that in detail now, but if I right click on the now value there, go into Format Cells, you have a custom format, M/D/YYYY H:/MM, and you'll know that you can either select one of the other formats, or indeed in the type field at the top here you could type your own date and time format in order to arrange that in any way that you want. I'm going to assume that you're familiar with that on the basis of your experience with Excel so far. But now I want to talk about a couple of other functions that I'm going to use on the now value here. So the first thing I'm going to do is to delete those other rows and just concentrate on this, because what I'm now going to do is to get the year number of now, and the year number of now is a way of finding out what the current year number is. Now, I really can't emphasize enough how important it is to understand the way that the formatting of dates and times works. And this is the sort of situation where many people get a little bit baffled as to what's going on. Don't forget, in this particular field we already had a date and time format. We're now expecting a number, just a year number. It'll be a whole number. So if I've already got something in that cell, I'm going to need to go in and reformat it. I don't want it to be custom date and time. It's going to be the number of the year, so I want number, and I want no decimal places as well. So if I now click on OK, I will get the correct answer to what the current year number is. Now let me move down a couple of cells, and let me now put the month number in here. And again, I can't really emphasize this enough. If you're starting in a cell that doesn't already have a format, then this will be fine, because when I tick this now, I'll get the month number, and Excel works it out for you. If you haven't already told it what to expect, it works out what sort of formatting it should apply. And similarly down here, if I use the day function to give me the day number of now, that is the day number in the month, then the answer I get is 25. This is the 25th of April. Now I should point out that apart from the three functions we've just used for year, month and date, there are three other functions: hour, minute and second, and their function, as I'm sure you can work out, is to give you the hour, minute and second of the current time. Now you may well get into the situation where you have some text, dates and times, such as the ones I have here, where they really are text. Maybe they've been imported from another system. They're not currently formatted in one of the standard ways that you would format dates and times, but you can still convert them into the standard Excel 2013 real format using two functions. Dates we process with date value, and times we can process with time value. So let's start with date value here. I can put equals, start typing the name of the function, it's date value. Put in there the cell it refers to, B2. And what that will give me is the day number, the normal day number, as the real date value for that particular date in B2. And then of course I could fill down and do the others. Now for these time values that you see here, there's a bit of an assortment here. We've got a 3:00, that's a 3 AM. We've got a 12 AM, so is that midnight or noon? And then we've got a 6 PM, which is 6 o'clock in the afternoon. The function for those is time value. Let's put in B6. And 3 AM is 0.125, that's 1/8 of a day. And if I fill down the others, you'll see that 12 AM is actually treated as midnight, it's 0, and 6 PM is 3/4 of the way through the day, so it's 0.75. If I clicked in here and changed AM to PM, you'd see that midday is half a day. So those two functions, date value and time value, can be really useful when it comes to converting text values into real date values or real time values. So we've had a look at the key basic functions for dates and times in Excel 2013. What we need to do now is to use some of those functions to perform some of the kinds of calculation that are often needed as you work in a more advanced way with Excel. That's what we're going to cover in the next section. I'll see you then.